Well, hey there, YouTube. PD2 Finger here. I'm going to be talking about Johnny Thunders, a member of the New York Dolls, solo artist, and rock and roll legend. So it begins with Story of a Junkie is a 1987 drama directed by Lech Kowalski, starring John Spacely, also known as Gringo, distributed by Troma Entertainment. So I had run across this movie. It's this guy, Gringo, and Gringo is a heroin addict in New York, and the bulk of the movie revolves around our hero Gringo copping and then using New York City street heroin in the early mid 80s. And this movie led me to Johnny Thunders. Johnny Thunders is a member of the New York Dolls who started punk rock. They were managed for the last week of their existence. They were managed by Malcolm McLaren, who brought over some money and dressed them up in red suits, put a communist flag behind them, and then that all fell apart. They took basically all of the money that Malcolm had given them and spent that on cocaine and heroin. And Malcolm took a white Les Paul guitar on the plane back. Well, first he tried talking this guy into, you're going to be in this band called Sex Pistols. Anyway, he ended up taking that guitar and giving it to Steve Jones, and that was the guitar in the Sex Pistols. So Johnny Thunders is a real deal rock and roller. How we have like the mainstream, how they worship, what's his name? The pirate guy, Keith Richards. Johnny Depp played him. Ha 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 ha, he's our junkie. Heroin chic. Well, the real deal, the guy who's not pretending, born to lose, looking for Johnny. We don't want to watch Room 237. Excuse me. Freud slipped. Room 37. New York Dolls was the band he was in. You could check out New York Dolls. All Dolled Up is the name of the documentary. You can just go to YouTube and check that out. New York Doll is the other one I'm going to recommend. That's the story of Arthur Killer Kane, the bass player for the New York Dolls, who could drink. And there's a part in here where the band is broken up. He's all poor, living in this horrible hotel with this woman, and he sees on the television Buster Poindexter in a scene of Bill Murray's Scrooged Christmas holiday film, and he goes completely berserk. It's so funny. The scene with Arthur Killer Kane, what happened, I could not stop happening. But it's also it's a tragedy. It's really sad. This whole thing, I have to warn you, it's going to be an episode of Rock Saga. So if you want to get a jump on that and learn a little bit about this, check out the New York Dolls All Dolled Up, or any documentary about the New York Dolls. Then I'm recommending New York Doll, Story of Arthur Killer Kane. I got to hand it to those guys. I really like their music. It's clear to me that this guy is the godfather of punk rock music. So we had Junkie with Gringo. Lech Kowalski also directs this Born to Lose, which is really good. There's multiple different versions of this found on YouTube. Almost too many different versions of it. It's the same director. It's the story of Johnny Thunders, the last rock and roller. Now, the other one that I looked for forever, I finally watched it yesterday. I downloaded something called Windscribe. Also, Bitmask VPN, two different free VPN services, which enabled me to use the Pirate Bay in conjunction with uTorrent and download a copy of Looking for Johnny, The Legend of Johnny Thunders, this 2014 movie directed by Danny Garcia. And it's really well made. This is probably the most professional documentary on the story of Johnny Thunders. Now, this Room 37 is terrible. There's a guy who plays him. This is a drama reenactment, and it deals with the end of Johnny Thunder's life in New Orleans, and they interject a horror movie, like The Shining type of plot thing in there, and it doesn't work. It's a shame because the guy looks and sounds like him and dresses like. They could have done something with this, but avoid this like the plague, and I have not watched that. Also, if you want to check out Stiv, this is another punk rock movie. It's made by Danny Garcia. It's the life and time of Stiv Bader's legendary frontman from the Dead Boys and Lords of the New Church. I haven't seen this yet. I know about this guy. He was a madman. He was one of Johnny Thunder's friends. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Johnny. The thing about him was he really had a look. He had a style, kind of like at times he looked like Teddy Boyish. Women loved him. He had some beautiful women in his life. He had some marriages. He had some children. He never really was a dad. He cared about one thing, and that was rock and roll. Other than rock and roll, he was a drug addict. He really loved his cocaine, and he really needed his heroin. Now, the one thing, the main reason I can respect Johnny Thunders is this: he had the same guitar. He never pawned his Les Paul Jr. It's the same one. He's had some paint work done on it, but you can see where the paint is chipping in the same spot. It's got to be the same thing. It's got to be the same Les Paul Jr. I could be wrong on that, but I really hand it to the guy for having the same instrument through all of this addiction. You see him with the same TV yellow Les Paul Jr. Now, when you come at this, you're going to notice right away he sings flat. He's never really in key, and his guitar is often out of tune. With Johnny Thunders, 9 times out of 10, what you saw was a shit show. He was always wasted on stage. Towards the end, people were coming because they wanted to see him die on stage. Let's go see Johnny the Junkie try to play. See him falling over the monitors, falling down. Maybe he'll even die. And I got to tell you, the nights when he was on, and he did really good. And there's some nights where he's messed up, where he does really good as well, depending on the level of messed up that you get him. He did have a style which was generic, basic 50s rock condensed into a punk format. He did have a guitar style, he had a vocal style, he had a writing style, which was typical pity party 50s poor me type of broken-hearted loner theme. So he is generally worshipped as flawless. He walks on water. He did write some really catchy, really well put together pop rock pieces of music. He really did. There's rumors about Chinese rocks that he wrote one verse of it or one part of it, and the rest of that was written by Ramon, and now I can't, Dee Ramon. They were friends, although Johnny used to just aggravate him all the time. To one point, Dee cut up all of his clothes into little strips with scissors and smashed his guitar, supposedly. Because Johnny used to say, "Oh, you're nothing but a little trick. You're a gay prostitute." You know, because Dee wrote some song of 54th Street where he used to go down and turn a trick, and Johnny never did that. So he called him a fag. But the thing with Johnny Thunders, the reason he's a legend is because of his death. There's a lot of mystery around that, and conjecture, I should say. Some people think that it was the leukemia, the cancer that got him, because he had lumps all over himself. Some people think that he was robbed or set up, that it was a premeditated murder. I think it's more likely, I mean, if you know a junkie, if you know anybody that's been through that hard drug thing, they're always telling you that they're cleaning up. And he was cleaning up. He was going down there. He had $20,000 in cash and a huge stash of methadone to get clean. I think it's more likely that he either naturally overdosed himself, or that he had taken some methadone and then shot up some junk on top of that, and his body couldn't handle it, along with him being sick. Or he was set up, that he did meet some people that gave him a hot shot with the intention of taking his $20,000, his guitar, his clothes, because everything was missing. All of his stuff was missing. He had a massive stash of methadone, and he also had his guitar and $20,000 cash. So all of that stuff's worth quite a bit of money. I mean, especially the clothing. So that is a mystery. You can check out an interview with the guy who was there. There was other stories that he had died with his guitar in his hand. That later on came out that was a lie. So it was like, there's just so much conjecture about this story. There's another story I heard. He met some people at a bar, took them back to his hotel to party with them, and they gave him a hot shot. So the guy he died young. He was 39. He never really had much sobriety in his professional life. From when he was very young, he was a drug addict until the end. So he is a real rock and roll legend. This is the real junkie guitar player. It's not Keith Richards. Keith Richards was loaded, and any type of, let's just say it would be minimal suffering he would have to go through if he was going to try to detox. It wasn't some type of hotel room, here's a belt to roll up and put in your mouth and bite down on it, like this guy was going through. So I can only imagine the misery that was this guy's life, and count my lucky stars that I was able to reasonably make it through this world unscathed and not let the hooks of addiction sink into the point where I have to, it just completely affects you and everyone around you. Johnny Thunders, the best say no to drugs walking billboard one could offer. So check some of that stuff out and look for him on an episode of Rock Saga coming up soon. Enjoy and peace.